Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the board workshop of the San Benito CISD Board of Trustees. Today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022, and the time is 5:34. I call this meeting to order. Okay, we'll begin with a roll call. I don't have the names in front of me, but I'll just go as a doctor. We'll start with Dr. Ariel Cruz.
Here.
Mr. Oscar Medrano.
Here.
Ms. Janie Lopez.
Present.
Mr. Orlando Lopez. Mr. Rudy Corona. Mr. Mario Silva.
Present.
And I'm here, so we do have a quorum. Next thing on the agenda is item 1.3, public comment. We have one public comment participant, Ms. Rosalinda Garcia. Welcome, and the time is yours.
Thank you. I just want to bring it up again. The voters were asked on the bond, the 30 million, or I don't remember. But anyways, regarding the multi-use facility that's been completed now, and there's a lot of students that are using it, the drill team, the football team, band, and I don't know if the community is ever going to get an invitation to view the multi-use facility. I personally would like to see it. And like I said, we were asked to vote on it, and it's complete now. Unless there's a policy out there that we can't view it. But if administration could give us an invite to look at this multi-facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Appreciate your comment. Also, my apologies, we do have Mr. Weller on standby. Mr. Weller, I didn't look up to see you on the video, but welcome. Can you hear us? Mr. Weller? How about now? Mr. Weller, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, there you go. My apologies once again. I hadn't looked up to see you standing by. Welcome.
No problem. Thank you.
Moving on to item 1.4, discussion regarding budget. I guess I turn this over now to Ms. Perez. Ms. Perez?
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we are going to go over the preliminary budget calendar that we have, not preliminary, the preliminary process of our budget calendar. So in January, we do put out a calendar so that we can have some kind of structure on where we're going, where we need to be at any given point. So this calendar is very fluid. It does change if it needs to. This is not set in stone, but it is meant to help guide us. So I do have a couple of, the pieces of the calendar little by little so we can go over it. We started in February 7th at our superintendent's leadership team. We talked about what the calendar looks like, any changes that we may need to incorporate. Do we need to shuffle some dates around? What does it look like as far as just any particular person needing any kind of accommodations? And we did shuffle it around just a little bit. We look at the enrollment from the last fall, and that was as of snapshot date. We look at what our program intent codes look like for special ed, GT, CTE, all of those special populations. We look at what our campus allocations are going to be, and I can tell you that we have an allocation of per pupil of $80 for elementaries per student, $90 for middle school. Yes, 80 for elementary, 90 for middle school, and 100 per student in the high school. So what I do is I get the spreadsheet and I put out all of the disaggregated data as far as what was at risk, Title I, special ed, GT, and I will give them all of their allocations for the year so that they can start that budget process. The special PIC codes, those come along a little bit later after we're done with finalizing our revenue sources. We talk about facility expenditures, any capital purchases that we might have in mind, which I have reached out to the board members in case anybody has any special request. I'm available to have a meeting, phone call. If y'all have any requests that y'all would like to see implemented, I'm completely open to that. Then we talk about any other budget allocations, maybe something that happened from last year, something that's come up during the year that we might want to consider. So some of the requests that y'all have talked about throughout the year, I've already worked on getting some quotes so that we can have a más o menos number that we can start working with, so that we can either work it in, talk about where we're going to do it, maybe something in phases. So that happens in the very beginning. This past week, 2 weeks ago, we started with our staffing reviews, and we did elementaries, middle school, and high schools. We have not done the central offices. That happens next week. So we get in a Zoom, and we have the principal, HR, myself, we have our special ed director, Mr. Manriquez, and we have our federal programs director, Mr. Perez. We talk about enrollment. We also have 2 HR ladies as well. We talk about enrollment. We try to anticipate any changes that might come in the campus, maybe some non-renewals, anybody resigning, anybody retiring. Talk about the contract list to see, if we're up to date with what needs to be submitted to the board. We go over, since these are the 2 bigger parts aside from local, we'll go over the special ed funding as well as the federal funding to make sure that everybody is coded appropriately. We have about 1,650 employees, so coding is really important as far as making sure that we're fiscally responsible, but also so that we can report that correctly to TEA as well. And then we go over the account codes, because it is a huge string of numbers, so we want to make sure that that's always corrected, or moving forward, that is good. And then last Friday, February 25th, I did send over a budgeting tools little folder with some information, all the disaggregated data, all of the data on one sheet so that everybody can see that it is completely equitable. We are completely transparent about what we're doing with each campus. Everybody knows, because there's no reason to hide it. Like, we're just doing everything out in the open. Some short videos on how to do their budget. We usually do a meeting together with the principals, but this past week was really busy with staffing, with some other trainings that we had. So we did some videos so that they can have that on hand, as well as the other supporting documentation. So that's what we've done up to date. These are some of the key dates that we have on our calendar. I've highlighted the ones that pertain to board members. So in March today, we are going over the preliminary budget discussion. We'll continue doing our budget planning, having the principals submit their budgets, having the directors submit their budgets. In April, we will start going over the revenues. So that's the first part. The next meeting after that, we'll go over expenditures. And that one is in May. And then in June, we wrap it up. And we will have the budget presentation the week before we do the approval of it. So at a committee meeting, we'll do a public hearing. And then y'all can see what it looks like and where we're headed with that budget. So I'm going to go back one here. Some other key dates is discussion of compensation plan. And that one can happen in either April or May. That is completely up to y'all. And that will happen with Dr. Cruz. Ultimately, the goal is to have absolutely everything into Skyward by the end of April so that we can start ironing out everything that needs to be balanced out as far as our program intent codes, our revenues, expenditures, where we anticipate that it's going to be, where we need to go, and any other plans that we have in mind. So we'll do the notice of the budget hearing. That happens to be 10 days, but no more than 30. We'll do the budget workshop during the committee week, adopt on June 14th, and then on September 13th, we will most likely adopt the tax rate at that point. So at this point, as far as revenues go, I'm working on our template using the numbers that we have from Fall Snapshot, comparing that to what we had last year at that same time. It really is a guesstimation of how we anticipate next year being. So the budget is always going to be very fluid as far as what we had last year, it's hard to anticipate, especially right now. Like, we've seen a major drop in students, so it's hard to anticipate where that's gonna head. So does anybody have any questions about the budget process itself or any part of the budget calendar?
I do.
Yes, sir.
No, looking at the date that we have the public hearing on the proposed budget on June 14th, and then looking back up to April 12th, when we have the budget workshop with the Board of Trustees. Is that the time on April 12th when we're able to get a preliminary budget? And I see also a date of April 4th where the prioritized list of major projects are due. So I guess one of the things that Ms. Lopez and I were just conversing about here is what I recall from last year when we were presented the budget. It seemed very rushed, and not only because we were new, but I'd like to have some time to really, really look into what we're going to be planning for the next coming year. So prior to even having this June 14th meeting, I would think that we would be able to have those discussions on or about April 12th. Am I correct?
I think realistically, a better day would be in the May meeting.
Okay.
Let me see. I don't think I have it on there, but I can add it on there. There should be a May
We
meeting.
have a budget workshop on May 3rd. I had failed to see
Oh,
that one.
Yeah,
So May 3rd,
it would be in May because.
and that would still have time, we would still have time to discuss
Yes.
any changes or anything that we see fit, correct?
So when you say that you want to review the budget, you want to review it at the function level, by the line level, or what is it that
Just
you?
major
anticipate?
expenses, like you've reached out to us, I don't know whether as a board, as a whole, or you've reached out to us independently, if we have any ideas or anything that we want to look at.
Yes.
Those, a good time to have those discussions.
Okay. So you want to talk about the major expenses? Yep, that would be definitely in May.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Ms. Vicky, you had mentioned earlier that you had más o menos a list of some projects that you were looking at.
Yes.
Can you share those projects?
Some of the things that were brought up were turf, netting, some sensory rooms for our special ed students.
The lighting at the old
The
stadium?
lighting at the old stadium. To be completely honest, the lighting at the stadium was something that Mr. Cole and I had talked about this year for next year. So that one, I do foresee that was going to happen. That was one of his phased items. So that one, I do believe that will go through because that was something that was planned with his budget. So at this point, that was all that's come up. If y'all have any other requests, you're more than welcome to bring those up to me, and we can talk about what they look like. I'm already getting quotes on some of the preliminary items that have come up. That way we can start working on where that fits, what it looks like, or what we need to phase in, because if it is a big project, it is gonna be a lot better if we phase those items in, so it's not such a big hit if we're taking it out of the budget. If we're gonna do it out of fund balance, then we can go ahead and do it. And we do have a healthy enough fund balance to carry that, as well as phasing out ESSER 3 money. So once we get those estimates, we can get a good picture about what it looks like for the next at least 2 or 3 years.
Ms. Vicky, I think I missed it, but by when do we need to give you any additional things that we wanted to add? Is there a certain date you want that by?
No, not necessarily. I have it on the 4th, April 4th.
So if we could
So
give it
if
to you
we-
before then.
Yes, if we can get it by that day, then we can look at what the campus allocations look like compared to, or in addition to, any requests that might come up. So that would give us a fair amount of time to review and plan accordingly.
If there's things that we have requested, I know, like, I put in the request for sensory rooms for the campuses. Do we have, this is kind of where we'll figure out if that's coming from campus, but like how much of it will come from campus budget, how much of it will come from the special ed budget? Is that kind of where we can see where the money is coming from?
It would be, I can tell you the special ed budget is a very big part of our budget. We actually use a lot more than what the state says that we need to, but, I mean, that's okay, because our students, they deserve it.
Correct.
So it will most likely be from fund balance with those.
Okay,
So
Can I give you an item right now?
if that's what you want to do, sir.
Because I noticed that the kids are using the street, it goes back to the ag barn, to walk, because they have nowhere to walk. So like people that are going to go feed their animals when they're coming back, the kids are all walking down that street because they have nowhere to walk.
Nowhere to go.
Okay. I got you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So is that more of an athletic thing, or it's just widening that road and maybe sectioning off a portion?
They need turf, they need a track.
They need a track, and they need a practice field because
Oh, like an entire, like something similar to what we had with the Cotton Bowl before it became Bobby Morrow? Okay.
We can get some basic quotes and see what it looks like if we need to downsize it, upgrade it, phase it in, whatever it is we need to
Yeah,
do.
something like that would be better if we can start with the basic and then just be able to add on to it, like something that's growable, I guess.
We'll get
I
some
do have another
options.
question. So I know that we have the request for the feasibility study for the tax rate. Is that
Yes.
gonna affect our timeline here?
That's a good question. Normally, I would have had our revenue budget already set, but because we have a consistent tax rate. At this point, it is holding it up a little bit. I do have a quote from Mr. Haney at Mo Casey. So within the next month, if y'all want him to come in, he can come in and present that information to y'all, and y'all can make a decision on what y'all want to do with that part. So it does hold up our program intent codes, which are our special population students. So at this point, I'm not able to get that budget for that part. So it will hold up that part for at least a month and
But
a
if,
half.
so if our tax rate stays the same, we have all the numbers to work on already?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions, board members?
I know you mentioned Mo Casey. Is there anybody else that can give us some information also besides them?
Well, we can discuss that when it comes up in the finance committee, right?
Okay, I'm asking Ms. Perez.
I only have one quote at this point. I did reach
sorry.
out to Mr. Weller, and he was not aware of anybody off the top of his head. We can ask him to go out and look for somebody. I'm not sure how long that will take. That will, quite honestly, it'll hinder the process just a little bit more on our end. At this point, I do have a quote coming in from Mo Casey, and that's the only one. And his quote is going to be basically doing the same thing that I would be doing, is giving y'all scenarios on what 1 cent, 2 cents looks like. And he'll be able to explain a little bit more, and y'all can get some questions and answers from him. So,
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
why did it take so long? Because I know I've been asking about this, getting a feasibility study for months already. So why did it take so long?
to get a feasibility study, I know you asked for that. Quite honestly, I've never even heard of that kind of report. So when you asked for a feasibility study, I was under the impression that you were asking me for the feasibility of getting it done. Since that is, a feasibility report is not something that I've ever heard of. So when I asked Mr. Weller, he did not know of anybody else. I talked to Dr. Carmen, and he said, okay, let's reach out to Mo Casey. So I spoke to Mr. Haney, Josh Haney from Mo Casey, and he said, he gave me his information, and I asked, if he could come over and explain that. So yes, it isn't because I wasn't looking, I just didn't know where to look. I've never heard of that, to be honest. So.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to encourage the administrators and the principals, if they have any safety concerns in the schools where they think that there's something that needs to be repaired, anything that needs to be done, like earlier Mr. Corona said, adding a track to one of the schools because it's a safety issue at that point if the kids are running on the street, right, or practicing on the street. And so I'd just like to encourage the principals to make note of anything that they might need at their campuses so we can make sure that all our students and staff are safe as well. And present it to you all in their budgets, you know?
Yes.
Kind of put together a wish list. Doesn't guarantee that we're gonna be able to get everything done, but, you know, we can look at priorities and see what it is that we can do for the campuses.
So part of the budget process, when I do discuss it with the principals, is that they submit what we call a one-time request. So it's not necessarily part of their budget. It's just something that comes up that does need to be addressed, and we do review that based on want and need. So if we're taking care of all of the needs and we still have a little bit more room for the wants, then we will definitely take care of that. If it's something like the marquees that we had, a couple of years ago, it turns out that more than 2 or 3 campuses wanted a marquee, so we did it for all of them. So we'll kind of assess just how much of a need it is across the district as well. So those are a very important part of our budget process, and they do know that they need to get us some quotes, give us some justification on why, just so that we understand and we can explain it to the board as well. So they're real good about turning it in.
And then the other thing, I know that you all mentioned the expenses, but also looking at where do you need to cut things that are really not necessary for spending. I mean, I know that we've approved a lot of and I'm just gonna use this as an example, a lot of online programs, online libraries, and I've heard from different people, well, we just have a list of these programs that the kids really don't utilize, so looking at utilization, what is being effective, what is something that's really needed in the district, and are there any things that we need to cut on any wasteful spending so that, we can get back on track? I know I heard you say, well, we can get that from the fund balance. Well, why go into the fund balance if you can look at other things that we might be spending on that might be unnecessary or wasteful spending?
Fund balance is more for one-time expenses. It's not meant to. I completely understand, and I will definitely share those sentiments with the principals and the directors, but the fund balance is more for one-time expenditures. That it would be irresponsible of me to suggest that we do a fund balance for anything that is a recurring cost, because that should be something that our regular budget takes care of. So those.
But if you save money on something that's a recurring cost, you can put in the fund balance, can't you?
Yes,
And then that'll save some of our fund balance.
which ultimately would get purchased through fund balance.
Correct.
So, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What are some of the things that the fund balance is used for if we're saving it? Like, what's the point of saving it if we're not, versus spending it on, I know you made a comment one time that the money's there so that we can spend it on our kids and our staff. So what is the purpose of saving it?
The main primary purpose of a fund balance is that we have a rainy day fund just in case the world ends for some reason. So we need to have at least 2 to 3 months of operations.
And we have that amount. You
We do.
have that amount.
We have more than that amount.
No,
and-
but you have that amount per year. So this year you'll
Correct.
be like, this is how much we have to have in our fund balance.
Correct.
And anything above that, we can use for these one-time projects that they're requesting.
Yes, I mean, we can save the money if you want to. I mean, it does no good in the bank if we could use it towards our students, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
And I appreciate what you just said, Ms. Perez, but, I don't think it's a matter of necessarily saving the money, but it's, don't buy just because we want to buy.
Oh, yes, I understand.
It is for a rainy day fund. If anything happens, we don't know what the future holds.
You're right.
And we do need to have a healthy fund balance. But again, we're not going to spend just to spend.
Correct.
And I think that's the point that Ms. Lopez is trying to make, and I want to make that as well. I want to reiterate that. We want to make sure that the money's being well spent and being, meeting student needs, because that's what it's
Definitely.
for.
Yes, I agree with you, sir.
Thank you.
I just want to echo what Mr. Moreno said. That is true, this is the money that we need to, this is taxpayer money that we need to be managing correctly. And I think that's a fair assessment, getting the wants and needs of the campuses and getting the wants and needs of the community for our students.
Okay, thank you, board members. Any other question? Ms. Perez, thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, we have a motion by Oscar Medrano, second. Mario Silva, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0.